Thanks for joining the Can You Relate channel today. Today we're going to discuss a very important topic in society, um, a subject that I hold near and dear to my heart because I've struggled with it for the better part of my life, and that is addiction. So, this is just my story. I'm hoping that going over this and talking about it and discussing it as far as my experiences could help someone who is dealing with addiction or who knows someone who is dealing with addiction. So, for me, I struggled with addiction from a very early age. I'm now 44 years old. I've been drug free and alcohol free for the last 10 years, which have been the best years of my life. Life is so beautiful and it's worth living. And it's so worth living sober. I don't spend every waking moment owned by drugs and alcohol and sex. I don't spend every waking moment searching after whatever drug that I'm on. I don't spend every waking moment being controlled and just owned by the addiction. That was probably the most exhausting part of any addiction that I've ever faced. But going back to my childhood, and the reason I want to start there is because after reading and listening and just learning about addiction over the last probably 15 years, I've come across information that states that a lot of people's addiction is caused by some type of childhood trauma, childhood experiences. And I'm not saying that that is the end all be all. I'm not saying that's true in every single person's case. I'm not that naive to believe that we all have the same, experiences and reasons for certain things in our life. Life is so different for so many people. There is no cookie cutter approach. But these are the things that I've learned as they apply to my life. And I want to share them in hopes that anyone that can relate to this at all, that it could potentially help them or help a loved one who's going through this. So, my home life, starting from the earliest moments that I can remember, was not good. I faced physical abuse, not on the worst level from my stepdad, but it was bad enough. I faced mental abuse from him, which was far worse than the physical abuse. So, growing up, from my earliest memories, from about kindergarten, I can always just remember not feeling loved and just wanting to be invisible because any attention that I got from him was always negative. As I got older, I had three other siblings, and basically, my mom lied to me saying that my stepdad was my dad, and they adopted me at a young age, and I had no idea that he wasn't my biological father. So that's the very beginning. So, growing up, my home life just, for lack of better terms, just absolutely sucked. I remember just crying myself to sleep at nights, wishing that I would wake up from the nightmare that was my childhood. I would see other, kids at school and interact with them and be around their parents and everything, and just wish that my dad was like their dad, or that their dad was my dad. So this went on up, my whole childhood, and then into my teenage years, where I started being able to have more friends at school, and being exposed to more things. My cousin and I would, when family would come over and stuff, and we'd have family get-togethers. We lived pretty much in a rural area, but a lot of the family members smoked cigarettes, and drank beer. And then, of course, in school there were younger kids that smoked cigarettes that thought they were cool. Um, Probably about 11 years old, from what I can remember. My cousin and I started stealing cigarettes from one of our uncles, and we would sneak off down in the barnyard back behind the barn and smoke the cigarettes. And over time, that just became an escape for me. Smoking those cigarettes, of course, the first time I inhaled it, like, to kill me. And whoever would go back to something like that is just beyond me. But of course I did, and millions of other people did as well. But that became my go-to. When I started getting addicted to the nicotine, it would just calm me down. Um, and that became my first escape from my reality. Well, thanks for joining us today as we kicked off this series on addiction. Be sure to like and subscribe, and join us again next time as we continue on with this discussion.